Hey, y'all.
Joining us now in the Element Well Studios, Dr. Tenette Smith, Mississippi Department of Education Executive Director of Elementary Education and Reading, and Kristen Wynn, MDE State Literacy Director. Ladies, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
So I've been seeing lots of good news about the progress made in the great state of Mississippi with respect to reading and comprehension and the scores there, the progress there made in K through 12, and of course literacy, big focus, a big part of that. We even got recognized, I talked about it on the program, in the New York Times, said Mississippi was a model for the rest of the state. And the governor, of course, has been boasting about that a bit as well. So start with you, Tenette. What's happening here? What's the secret sauce?
Secret sauce for our success?
Yeah.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, sure.
It's a lot of hard work by a lot of different people. It's a combination of resources, of combining our resources and making sure that we are attacking the issue of literacy with a multi-pronged attack. We use our literacy coaches. We use early childhood coaches, early childhood supports. We use intervention supports. We collaborate within the office of our chief academic office, and so we work with our Office of Special Education, our Office of Digital Learning, multiple offices working together to ensure that our students have access to high-quality teachers and high-quality instructional material.
Yeah, so just again, referencing this New York Times article, the individual who did the research here that was really the input for the article came to Mississippi, went to the classrooms, went to a classroom in Jackson, I believe, and said that he caught the students reading a book, The Vegetables We Eat, and was rather astonished at the way in which the kids were able to read aloud and actually debate what vegetables are. Was shocked at how fluent they were and how just competent they were in reading this material. And that's just fantastic. And actually referred to some of the words they pronounced. Vegetables, which is not an easy word to pronounce when you're that age. Eggplant, certainly not a common part of the vernacular at that age.
Yes.
I mean, that's impressive.
It is impressive. But again, we didn't just start this. It didn't just start here. We started in 2013. And in 2013, we made a concerted effort to make sure that we were layering in our supports. Because in 2013, we had the implementation of the Literacy-Based Promotion Act, right? Yeah. Multi-pronged attack, not just a third grade gate, as people tend to say, the third grade reading score, third grade reading test. It also had in there that we had to work with parents. We had to hire literacy coaches. We went an extra mile. We gave a little bit of lagniappe, right? We wanted to make sure that we not only worked with parents and helped our teachers, we wanted to make sure that we were all speaking the same language. And so we identified a science of reading as a method of helping teachers become more competent in teaching kiddos how to read.
Sure. So, Kristen, tell us about your organization, serving as the State Literacy Director. What does that entail exactly?
So my role as a State Literacy Director, I help with the implementation and support with carrying out the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. As Dr. Smith mentioned, that act has several different parts. One includes students have to be screened 3 times a year, starting in kindergarten, which if you were in a classroom or mentioned about a classroom and students were able to read those very difficult words at an early age, is because they've been screened starting in kindergarten to identify any reading deficiencies that they may have. And then the law also requires that they're given a diagnostic assessment and other components. I also have a team of literacy coaches, and we go out in schools and we work in the lowest performance schools in Mississippi, really working side by side with teachers and building their knowledge of how students learn to read. And so we also are responsible for the professional development provided to teachers and leaders across the state of Mississippi to ensure they really understand the scientifically based research around the science of how students learn to read, why some students have difficulties with reading and writing, and then how we assess and teach students. So that's what the science is all about. And so I work in the role of making sure all of those multiple moving parts are pushed out in the most efficient and effective way to teachers and leaders in our state.
Okay, so has some of this just evolved over the last few years, these new analytics and assessment techniques? Is that relatively new, or has that been around and we're just starting to focus on it?
It's been around for a long time. Like Dr. Smith said, we started to take the shift in 2013. If you just kind of think back to when you learned to read or when I learned to read in school, we learned from a whole word approach. Like we were looking at whole words and lots of sight words, and that kind of saturated our state for a long time, like our country. Okay. But that was not the best way to teach students how to read, because when you're starting to look at how things become more complex with reading, you have to be able to attack words in smaller parts and in meaningful parts. So we shifted around that time with the components of the law to really focusing on what is the science telling us? What is it specifically that we need to do at each grade level to ensure students have the foundational skills that they need to be skilled readers and to be able to comprehend complex texts later on in life or in the later grades.
So, Dr. Smith, is this kind of giving rise to new instructional techniques and methodologies?
The instructional techniques and methodologies have been around for years.
Okay.
But it's given rise to us focusing more in depth and narrowing our focus. And so no longer are we using some strategies that have been proven or disproven, right? We are now using strategies that are balanced in its approach and that are grounded in research. You know, the science of reading is grounded in a broad plethora of research articles, as well as it's continuing to grow. So, like Ms. Wynn said, we don't stop on our laurels. We don't stop where we are. We continue to go out and we continue to research and find additional ways to support teachers as well as students. So, no, it's not new.
Okay. But you're maybe focusing on it more, right?
Yeah.
And do the teachers, Kristen, do they embrace this?
Yes. So because
you said that reluctantly.
Not really, but kind of. No, they do, because I think a lot of light bulbs go off in the training, because for so long, things that as teachers, when we all went through our prep programs, we should have received that we didn't. Okay. And so when you get in the classroom and you have a student in front of you that may be having some reading difficulties, and you've tried all of the methods that you may have been taught in your prep program or the curriculum that's placed in front of you, and it doesn't work, then you're kind of stuck. Well, with the training that we have provided to over 20,000 teachers across the state, they really learn, well, why do kids or why do some students have these difficulties? Like, what's going on in the brain, because the science is grounded in neuroscience. How does the brain work when we read? What about students with dyslexia? Well, how does it affect their reading? What parts do they need? What do we need to really dive into when it comes to the 5 components of reading and how we've been teaching it? They walk away feeling better and more, more prepared, I would say. Okay. But they also walk away saying, I should have learned this in college.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, so are you guys talking to the colleges about changing the programs?
Oh, absolutely. So we partner with them, and initially when we had the trainings, our colleges and university professors, they were a part of the training as well.
Okay.
They have their own separate cohorts. We also have kind of shifted some of the content that they utilize within their teacher prep programs in their Early Literacy 1 courses and their Early Literacy 2 courses. Plus, we also have a Foundations of Reading assessment that our pre-service teachers have to take leaving those universities.
Got you.
So,
I'm glad to hear
yeah.
it because it's so important that the colleges get feedback from the field so they can make adjustments and enhancements to their programs to make sure they're training folks, no matter what the profession is. Teaching is no exception to that. Training folks to do what we need out in the field, out in the real
Absolutely.
world. Ladies, appreciate you guys coming on. Congratulations on all your efforts there. Thank you for that and the success here in the state of Mississippi. I know this will bear fruit in the future as our kids get older. It's important that they get through this process while they're in and get proficient while they're at this level. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming right back.